it was really hard to not love the children the way that I did prior. And I don't.
Right.
Because they didn't want me to.
Right.
And it's so confusing because you're supposed to love them. And that's where I drew the line with like, if you don't want me to love them, then you don't get to have me drive them all the time.
Right. And it's not a matter, I don't think, that they don't want you to love them. They don't want you to parent them. They want you to love them when it's convenient and when it doesn't cause disruptions with the ex. Welcome to episode 289 of the Nacho Kids podcast. I have an announcement to make. If you are interested in joining the Nacho Kids Academy and getting help for your blend, you want to do so before the end of the year. Anyone that joins before the end of the year will be grandfathered in to be able to attend the 2 Q&A coaching calls a month. Anyone that joins on or after January the 1st, the Q&A calls will not be part of our base plan in the Academy. So if you want help with your blend or just want to better your blend, join the NachoKidsAcademy.com and join today to be grandfathered in to get the 2 Q&A coaching calls per month. All right, our guest today is West Coast stepmom. She has been blending for 4 years, has 2 stepkids in middle school, and is currently pregnant. And we'll just say that she has had her fair share of struggles in this blend. That's all I'm going to tell you. So let's get to listening. Today we have West Coast stepmom. Hey, West Coast stepmom, how are you?
Good. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your blend. How long have you been blending? How many stepkids, bio kids, all that good stuff?
So we've been blending 4 years and I'm currently pregnant, but I did not bring any children to the mix. And my husband has 2 kids and they're currently in middle school. And when I joined, it was us. And then their mom at the time was a single mom.
Okay.
And we have 3 dogs. We tried chickens, but it didn't turn out so well.
Well, at least you didn't get the chickens after the dogs.
Yeah.
So when you met this guy and he had kids and you didn't.
Yeah.
Did that cause you any hesitation of getting into a relationship with him?
Well, no. And I hear this a lot from a lot of people. He was a great dad and the children were it was really easy. And I'm an auntie and I've always had like friends that were single moms that needed help. So the child dynamic didn't really affect it. And my husband is extremely hands-on. Mm-hmm. And so in the beginning, I've heard of this too. I had no really thought process to the future. Their mother was not really present for me. She was present for her children, but she wasn't present for me at all until into the marriage. And so I didn't understand the full dynamic. And then I've always been kind of not flighty, but I've always been really free spirited and I had a dog and friends. And so I've never really been one to look into the future. I've always kind of handled things when they came to me and just enjoyed where I'm at. And I enjoyed where I was at. And so I did, yeah. I didn't think at all about the process.
Right. So you made a comment that bio mom wasn't present for you.
Correct.
So can you explain that? Because a lot of people are thinking, why would she need to be present for you? She's present for her kids. That's all that matters.
So prior marriage, they had a set schedule, 50-50 during the week. And she did her days and he did his. And that was it. We had Thursday through Sunday night and it just did. And I didn't meet the kids for over 6 months. And I had known my husband prior times. We had not connected until this time. So I kind of had this like idea of we had dated with no exposure to the children. And then once the children were exposed due to his schedule, I was around quite a bit because it was Thursday through Sunday night. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the kids were great. So I was like, oh, they have great mom, great dad. Like it seemed very utopia. Mm-hmm. And so I thought it was from I have no one in my life that's a step parent. So
Right.
I was completely like, oh, this is a healthy situation. And I thought they're with their mom and dad different times. And I didn't really realize that it could be affected based off marriage, based off like changes in our home.
Right.
And so honestly, it was the most ideal situation anyone could ask for at first, the first year.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the engagement is when I started recognizing things. Prior the engagement, like I see we left town for one night due to some serious issues and obligation. And there was like a little outlash from that, which I thought was interesting, but I kind of just let it alone. I personally have always been around women who were kind of open, and I wasn't prepared for what I was getting into. I hadn't really been exposed to that.
So did you think that things were good with mom, things were good with dad, so that you would come in and be a co-parent between them? Is that what you thought?
Well, I thought it'd be an auntie. I mean, the kids and I immediately like connected. They had been separated, I think, 6 years. So I didn't know to ask questions like, how did things end? I was extremely supportive of their mother
Mm-hmm.
due to the nature of how I was raised and just the women I know. Like, I was very empathetic, and he wasn't necessarily like bragging on her or anything. But yeah, there was a lot of support, and I figured I was just like the auntie, and I enjoyed kids, and we'd go swimming. It's hard to explain, but there just wasn't a lot of thought. I didn't consider myself needing a role because they had their parents.
Right. But when you go back to by a mom not being present for you.
Well, because because she became an extremely present person in our house.
Okay. So
as each milestone happened.
All right. So in the beginning, she didn't have a lot to do with you.
She had nothing to do with me, and I had nothing to do with her.
Right. And then
Yeah.
you get engaged, and all of a sudden she starts butting in.
Yeah, she didn't really butt in. It was more, the kids would stop by for bathroom breaks Monday through Wednesday. And so
intrusive.
Yeah. And so, obviously, like any person, wants that openness for a child to walk into the door. But I kind of I let it kind of go a little bit, but I did start expressing, I want to be able to like have intimacy with you, not at strict hours, Monday through Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't received well and I agree with my husband. I do. The children need a open revolving door, but that was hard. And in today at this stage, I'm definitely learning how to have boundaries. It's such a tough place to be in because if everything is healthy, you don't really want to be the person to rock the boat, but you also know, children are first. You understand the health aspect of that. But then it's hard to convey, like, well, for over a year, they didn't stop to use the bathroom.
Right.
It's a really bizarre place to be are you starting to like have territorial issues? It's really confusing.
Right. Yeah, because all of a sudden they have to stop there every day to use the bathroom.
There's always been a very healthy, or not healthy. There's always been a very, I call it covert. Like there's a very covert inconsistency with it.
Mm-hmm.
So every time you would kind of try to figure out a pattern, the pattern would change. And so that's when you start questioning things.
Right. You're like, wait a minute, little Susie didn't have to come here before, but now she's here all the time.
Yeah. And then the kids, it's tough because I want to be completely respectful because our family is very loving, and the children are like so great. I know that both parents definitely love the children a lot, but in reality, from an outsider's point of view, which is openly talked about, especially if you don't have children, you're kind of like noticing things.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting to understand that this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like they didn't used to, just pop in. So now they're understanding I wouldn't say shock on my face, but in my opinion, my husband would not agree. I don't even know if he'd want me doing this, to be honest, but in my opinion, they start, like, the step parent starts becoming, pointed out as the person with no control.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a tough spot.
Yeah.
You start falling in love with these children. And so you don't want them to see that you want selfish time.
Right.
And then you listen to all these like ideas and you go with your heart and you go with the way you were raised. Like if I was raised in a nuclear family, so I have full confidence in walking in my parents' house.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's just really tough.
Yeah.
And
it is
especially
hard.
at first, because at first you're not sure the extent it's going to go.
Yeah.
Initially, so that was engagement. By marriage, there were Thursdays were added to our schedule.
Okay.
And then within a year of that, it was 7 days a week.
So what happened? Because she's all up in everything, right? She's wanting to be at your house. Well, okay, we're making assumptions, but
yeah, that's not, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So we're making assumptions that little Susie didn't really have to pee, but mom says, hey, do you need to pee? We're right here at your dad's house. And so she's putting herself she's intervening, right?
Yeah.
Or that's not the word I'm looking for. She's
it's not interfering. She's letting her presence be known.
Right.
So in our situation, my husband is like the best father. He is one of the best I've ever seen. So I don't think it's like, oh, you have to pee, we'll swing by. Because my husband's asked me about this. What do you think is said?
Right.
And I say, like, I think it's as simple as want to grab tacos and the location, which is nowhere near the other locations to go, or near our house. And then, of course, it's like, oh, you want to see dad? Well, what kid doesn't want to see their dad?
Right. Exactly.
So that's why I use the word covert, because it's not straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have, I never had met her. So I actually, this is how ridiculous I am. I actually started like asking my husband if, there was, I was like, I think this is a big deal. We're getting married. And I think that I came in so naive because I want to see the good in people. I want to understand, but I had never met this person, this
Right.
woman.
Right.
So I'm going into this like from how I would view it, or how my girlfriends, if I were to say she did this, they would say, check yourself. She's their mom.
Yep.
I'm going in with like a healthy attitude, and not that she's not, I don't want to say that about her, but like a functional, like way to solve anybody's misunderstanding.
Mm-hmm.
So I like offered, we should get her like a spa weekend. Like I legitimately was offering this for a woman I didn't know who was slowly intruding.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like, she's probably really tired. She works a lot. It's not easy for her.
You're a compassionate person.
Yeah, but like my mother, she won in the end. Because a couple years into it, I lowered my standards of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom said she said she won because she got to you. It took her a couple years, but she got to me.
Yeah. Now, my mom doesn't know you're pregnant yet, right?
I would assume she does now. We just told the kids this weekend, so I'm sure. I'm not even going to bring it up we're at the stage where I'm not even going to ask my husband. I'm just going to let it play out.
Yes, 100%. That is the best thing you can do.
Yeah, because it's hard for someone to have a new person come in and be like, this is going on. explain that even though you had a girlfriend, this is different.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, we're married. Your children were drawn to me, and I don't care that they're always around. Like, I enjoy them.
Right.
And I'm not a motherly figure to them at all. And they would say the same. I'm a nurturer, but I definitely am more of an auntie. And I've always been very casual with them. And I explain to them like blood relation and how that's a stronger bond. I actually brought that up to them a couple years ago. And we're very open about the kids, and I are very open that, they have parents. And yeah, it's an open discussion. And I leave. Like, I go for the weekend sometimes to my friends. Like, there's definitely some separation for the kids to understand that, I had a prior existence.
And you're allowing dad to have alone time with them.
Right. Which became an actual priority more recently. I started, because my husband started working out of town. And so things got complicated with mom reporting on me, but I still had the kids every day. And there's so many emotions driven, I've learned. It's just really hard to be the person on the outside, but still being given a lot of responsibility with no voice.
Right. So you were basically the fun aunt, the auntie.
Oh, by far. But I don't know their mother, so she doesn't know that.
She doesn't know what?
I don't know her. So I don't, in my opinion, and I openly tell the kids, I don't know your mother.
Right.
And so I don't think, this is kind of a root of something I did want to bring up. Blended split families are 40% of the United States at this stage.
At least.
So I find it really interesting. Some families come from more of it, some don't. That is definitely a giant difference that, my husband and I have addressed, is that, because I came from such nuclear, not only immediate family, but extended family, there's been a lot more growing pains and expectations that I have had that are, you don't know how unrealistic, but you're also like drowning a lot in the beginning.
Right.
So you're looking for anything to survive, really.
Right.
You have no experience in this. You have no idea if something is normal or not. And you're listening to podcasts. Now all of a sudden you're down a mini wife syndrome like process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Imagine how you're so confused. And so what I have also noticed though is with the kids. So if over 40% of kids are in this situation, that is their generation.
Mm-hmm.
I am a late millennial. So my generation, it was more like you knew who was either the parents are divorced, or you just knew that some families like were more diverse with the family structure.
Right.
But nowadays, that is the norm. Mm-hmm. So what I've really been struggling with is that the children are actually growing up in this. So this isn't as abnormal for them because this is their norm.
Right.
And so I mentioned this to you before, but I found it fascinating. At one of the kids' graduations this spring, I was introduced to one of the kids that was always at our house. I was introduced to his dad and stepmom. And the kid introduced me and the stepmom, and he just went, stepmom, stepmom. So, and she gave a big smile. I don't know her story. I don't know her situation. I'm actually friends with his mom, but the children are rolling with it.
Right.
It's us adults that are struggling, and the majority, not a statistic person, but I do research a ton and I'm mathematically driven, but the majority of and I'm also in a male dominated field. So I see a lot of men in their second marriages.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of women tend to end up being the single mom, but men are advocating for their children now.
Right.
But they're getting remarried.
Mm-hmm.
And, I am even the woman who had no kids and married a man with kids. I am the statistic.
Right.
I had a great, free life. I had a career. Like I felt fully satisfied by the time I became a stepmom. I just walked into it making it look easy breezy,
Mm-hmm.
And as a woman, I think that the biggest issue with step families or blended, it's the woman.
Right.
I don't think it's even the children. Like, people will say that behaviors with the children are hard, and I know they are, but I can sit back and diagnose that almost 80% of any behavior I've seen come out of my stepkids was based off parent or myself reacting to something.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yes.
wasn't them by nature wanting to cause chaos when they have a great life at both homes.
Right.
It was some kind of push and pull.
Yeah. And a lot of times that's the case. For instance, the kid's happy. They're happy at one home. They're happy at the other home. Then all of a sudden, for instance, a mom will say, I don't want you to love Lori.
Yeah.
It bothers me when you love Lori. She's not your mom. And that one thing can completely change that child because there's those loyalty binds. They feel guilty because they do care about the stepmom, but they think they're hurting the bio mom. But it's just one comment from bio mom that stemmed all that.
Well, and it even got to a point. So we had a situation where I was with the kids, and this becomes common once they hit middle school, to have them use the phone instead of going through the step parent.
Right.
And I didn't feel comfortable with it due to the scenario at the time.
You didn't feel comfortable with them using the phone?
No, I didn't feel comfortable with basically the kid running the schedule, being the middleman.
Okay.
For communication with me and their mom.
Right.
It made me really uncomfortable. So I ended up getting a landline. There were a lot of changes at the home at the time, and that is something where the nachoing comes in, because if the parents are comfortable with it, I shouldn't have a problem.
100%.
But I did.
But no, wait a minute. Let me say that. The parent may not have a problem with you being the go-between, but if you have a problem with it, then it's a problem.
Well, and that's where I ended up nachoing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I did.
Good for you.
I did have a problem with it.
Yeah.
And I got frustrated one night, and I was like, I'm getting a landline, and it was just me and the kids. And I'm like, getting a landline. And this is when I was getting really stressed, and they were seeing, I was starting to show like a side of me that wasn't my nature. It was the buildup of having no voice.
Right.
And anyway, I ended up going on a walk. That's what I do when I'm alone with the kids. I go on a walk and I let them go. That lady's crazy. But or I ask them to talk, handle whatever. If they got in a disagreement, I go on a walk and let them, they're siblings, they don't need me to figure it out.
Right.
Then I come back, and this time I came back and I said, I need to sincerely apologize to both of you, because I'm asking when you're getting picked up.
Mm-hmm.
And that hit like rocks. I was like, and I told him, I'm like, I am part of the problem. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to get a landline. And so I did. But.
And let me say that, first of all, I commend you for apologizing to the stepkids. That is so important, because they realize we're human and we're not perfect. And I also applaud you for recognizing that, hey, this is causing me stress, and there is another option.
Yeah. And some things are clear in that department, and others aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Others, there is no solution. But yeah, I really believe that the kids are just growing up in this society where it's really just kind of their norm.
Yeah. But that doesn't necessarily make it easier.
No.
Because I know my son, from the very beginning, he was at his dad's, in between me and his dad, from birth, basically. And once he got a little bit older, I started seeing, somebody invited him to a birthday party that lives near us. Dad didn't want to deal with going to that. So I said, well, I'll just keep him and I'll take him. Well, then it's you owe me time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So all that gets convoluted. But y'all having the stepkids now, all the time except for when bio mom wants to get them?
No, that ended.
That ended?
Well, it wasn't. It wasn't. So last year it was more like a lot. It was a lot of cancellations.
Okay.
And we were at the other house, and that didn't really affect me because my husband handled everything. So everything was kind of, we all roll our eyes. But since he was home, I would just go make dinner. Like, it'd be like, okay. And it was so common. You rolled with it, but we were at our home.
Right.
And he was there.
Right.
And then he started working out of town. And the first couple weeks I thought would be the same. They would I encouraged her having them on her days because I needed a break myself.
Right. And she's mom.
And she's mom. And I have a mom. So I understand that I need my mom. And, dad's out of town. Like, I was all on board, them leaving, when she got off work and me having the evening.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got complicated. My husband's like in this like intense job situation where he really needs the attention to be on him. Or maybe not those words so far, but he needs his house to just be structured.
Right. He doesn't need to deal with extra stuff while he's out of town.
Exactly. And so I'm like trying to sustain his, like, what he wants. I've got enough years behind me to know how he wants his house ran. And all these things. And that's when she was unable to just do her Monday through Wednesday. And it started becoming whenever she wanted, they would be there.
Yeah.
So,
which is a problem for most step parents, even some bio parents, and even the kids. They need consistency.
Well, the kids started, and this is where my husband and I still are, we're doing a lot of healing, but we're still not able to have these open conversations. The kids started acting different, like in the house and towards me. They started saying like, oh, I'd say, feed the dogs. Oh, it's not our day at Dad's house. You're in Dad's house.
They would say it's not our day here, so we're not doing it.
I mean, they're really good kids. So yes, they would, but they weren't doing it in a rebellious, nasty way. But
it was just factual, right?
It was factual. And I would be like, well, factually, you're here.
Right.
Because I had almost 2 years with them. I mean, I can't say every day, but in 2023, my husband and I had, I think, 3 evenings alone the whole year. And so we also were taking care of a family member. So, sometimes they were gone, but it was, yes, they were a giant part, but she didn't live far away. It's not like there we go. He never took away her role.
Right.
And I never challenged that either. And I have to give my husband huge props because he's like, it's their mother and she mothers how she mothers and she has that right. And I respect him for that because nobody's in danger.
Right.
It's nothing's like, there's no neglect. There's nothing like that going on. But that's great that she's there. That's great that my husband has that much respect for her, and it gives me hope as his mother of his child. But like, what about me? This isn't working for me today. I work full time too.
Right.
And so that kept going on. I mean, we're talking no kids. And I'd be like, where's the kids? And I had no communication with her because her and I communicated. We made it, I think, honestly, maybe 5 days where she coordinated with me. I'm not a texter and she only texts. Anyway, my husband got really ill. And when we got out of the hospital, she started texting him. It was very exhausting. It was almost ICU. And so we get home and she started texting, oh, our daughter has an issue with stepmom. And I forgot to tell you, she mentioned it a couple months ago. And there's real issues going on, like teaching her to lie, like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Now, bio mom's telling your husband.
She starts texting him this about an hour and a half after we're out of the hospital.
Oh, surprise.
And that was the first like experience. And I have no clue what I'm getting into. Right. So I text her back and I'm like, hey, I forgot to mention, because I'm naive to the scenario I'm in. I'm not a naive person. And so I'm like, she probably doesn't know how serious this was. This is not the time.
Right.
And so I mentioned, but once again, we were alone. Mm-hmm. Anytime we're alone, this happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so I messaged her back in a text and I'm like, hey, this week, I didn't want to scare you when we were in the hospital. It was actually a lot more serious and we were almost in ICU. So I just wanted to be open with you now that we're out, thinking that would get her to stop. I don't know what I was thinking. So she does this thing where she tells my husband, so she set a boundary and blocked me for writing that.
Mm-hmm.
And told him I'm allowed boundaries with her. So now,
and she is,
but so am I.
Mm-hmm. But she created it first.
Well, oh yeah, because I'm sitting there like exhausted, being in the hospital overnight and almost in ICU for a serious condition that luckily was resolved. And now I'm being like yelled at when my husband's on steroids. He's exhausted. We're both exhausted. And now I'm being accused of like teaching. There were other things, but the one I remember was teaching a kid to lie, which I had when I first met the child. I had only known the child like a couple months, and I made a dumb joke, and I said, "Oh shoot, I probably shouldn't have said that." And the way it was worded was like I was intentionally teaching a child to lie.
Right, but you made a joke.
I made a joke and I said, because at the time she was blowing things out of proportion.
Mm-hmm.
I said, can we not blow this out of proportion? Like, I shouldn't have said that to you. And I did. I said, can we just keep it between us? Mm-hmm. I did. And I screwed up. That was over a year prior when this was brought up.
Right, because that comes across as you are trying to keep the kid. You are trying to tell the kid to keep something from the other parent.
Well, the irony of it is that it had happened over a year earlier and it was exposed what I said the same evening that I said it.
Oh, wow.
So over a year later, it's brought up hours after being discharged. So, and that was my first like real experience without me understanding it would continue and continue and continue.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm in a situation where we're both tired. We were both scared. He is on steroids due to the situation, which just escalate everything.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just texting him and won't stop.
Right.
And he's screaming at me that I'm trying to harm his kids.
Because that's what she's saying.
She's saying.
Yes. And it puts him in a bad situation. Because obviously the kids are telling bio mom this. And then bio mom's like, hey, your wife or girlfriend at the time, whatever it was, is being mean to our kids. And so he reacts.
Yeah. And it's the timing with it, because even when we were newly married. So I was trying to get him to understand that his daughter might be struggling with, I like moved in.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a lot of loyalty that I joined. And so I respect that and forgive everything that's kind of happened, because I really was new.
Mm-hmm.
And we both, you're older. So, you're set up. So to combine homes is not, I don't know how people do it with both people having children.
Yeah.
So I had told him, I think she's struggling with me. And he kind of, I don't want to use the word dismiss, but in a sense dismissed, not because of her, but just how it goes. You're just trying to make a problem out of nothing.
Right.
So then the day that happened was their mother had said, oh, I forgot to tell you this. It had happened she told me a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So basically this giant situation that gets him going and
happened
then gets
months
us
ago.
to argue happened. The incident happened over a year ago. He knew about the incident. And then after we're married, when any daughter is going to go, dad is married.
Mm-hmm.
Like any little girl is going to do that, is spoken of. And then on like a terrible day, mom's like, oh yeah, I forgot. She's struggling.
Oh, yeah.
Like we're already past that. We already got past that.
Right. But she's just stirring the pot.
Yeah. So once he started working out of town, it went full-fledged. That exact type of scenario.
Let me bring up one thing and then let's talk about that. But you had mentioned that your husband didn't change his ex-wife's role.
No.
And the thing is, I want to clarify, it's not saying that she's no longer mom, but it's setting boundaries.
So she actually told me, we've only texted like 6 times. I've only seen her in person twice.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe 3 times, but only spoke to her the one. We don't know each other at all. And she did make it clear to me that I am the insecure one and she said the words, we are a nucleus family. They are.
Really?
Yeah.
Did she forget they split up?
Well, I'm a little crazy. So I looked up the definition of nucleus.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Like, because we're dealing with a lot of feelings instead of logic. And that's not all on her.
Right.
He allowed her to have full freedom of dropping them off, like, and I got past it, but he never made us priority. Him and I.
Right.
And that was hard, but because of who I am, I started just going with it. And we had our own nucleus, honestly. I would never tell her that.
Mm-hmm.
But we had our own nucleus. And then once he started working out of town, she couldn't sustain actually doing anything without him or the home.
Mm-hmm.
I was still disregarded, but she still needed the home.
Right.
But it was my home.
Which is not okay.
No, it was my home.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Where are things now?
So what ended up happening is, because my rules at the time with that were, I don't care if the kids are here. I need to know if they're not here.
Right. And I'll tell you how important that is. We have a lady that she never knows if the kids are home or not. And I tried to explain the importance of, if there's a fire, you need to know who to get out of the house. Could you imagine there being a fire and your husband comes up and says, well, where's little Susie? And you're like, I didn't know she was here. Or I thought she was with Biomom.
No, and things like that would happen because tension started. So our home quit being a home.
Mm-hmm.
And then my husband would come home on the weekends and tell me what I did wrong that week.
Right.
Based off what her and him discussed. Mm-hmm. He gave her free reign. Free reign.
And you're thinking, if y'all get along so good, why aren't y'all together?
Yeah.
Yep.
I left.
You moved out?
I left. Well, I had a renter at the house I had purchased prior who was just like a kid, because it's just a cabin. It's nothing big. And I went to a friend's, and then, I came here and I asked the kid if he would move out. And I left.
You're like, you got to go. I got to have somewhere to go.
No, I did, because it became incredibly unhealthy.
Right.
And I didn't have a voice. And I kept telling my husband, because the blame kept getting put on me that I was struggling with him out of town. I was way more independent than any of one else in the situation I'm in prior.
Mm-hmm.
I had been in relationships with a firefighter. I had traveled myself for work out of town for over 2 years. Like, I was not the candidate to pull that on.
Right.
So I'd had enough. It was so covert. It was so bizarre. And the kids were like, the kids were changing, and I had no one to express that to, because the bottom line is I was being alienated by my own family and his mom, and the kid's mom, while being told it's all in my head, and it wasn't.
Right.
So I left and I got myself set up to take 3 months off from work, and I left and went to a friend's for a week. And then I came to my place and asked the kid, and the kid was understanding, and,
poor kid. He's like, darn blended families ruined my life.
well, I worked with the kid. And so the people at work had seen me like way extending myself with my family, which is on me. But they saw the phone calls. They saw the pickups. They saw me like trying to get an easier schedule. Like, they saw me doing these things, and they worked with me. So they knew I was a good person. Like, I wasn't trying to cause issues. I wouldn't say they were judgmental, but they all understood, like, she is not in the easiest situation.
Right.
And so this is why I stayed away. My husband came and hung out a couple weeks later, or he came to visit me here after some stuff, it had cooled off a little, and we had a lovely evening. And then before he left, he said, "Oh, the kid's mom said that you made a Instagram page for the dog." And I'm like, "What?" I had told one friend I'd made this. I have barely any social media presence, like private, maybe 65 to 80 friends on my profiles. And
right.
I made one of the puppy because the puppy, sometimes I was kind of losing my mind, and possibly the puppy could pay for its own dog food. I didn't know. I asked a friend, and she said, "Yeah, it'd be cute. It gives you something to do. You literally just ran away from your family."
Right. And not just that, but so many times, and this sounds like what's happened to you, is you lose who you are in the blend.
And when that happens, you start like grasping, and I'm a very colorful person. So you start like grasping for anything.
Yes.
And so by making this page, it was a way there wasn't a lot of thought into it. And so he defended her in it.
What? What did he say?
He was just like, "Well," I go, "she's stalking me."
You're playing victim. I can hear it. Yeah.
"She didn't stalk you. She said it came up." So I am like, "No, that is really bizarre. My mom hasn't even like asked me about it. Like, nobody I know has asked me about it. And she's screenshotting it and making fun of it and sending it to you?"
Yeah.
I was like, "How bored are you?"
Yeah. Well, not just that, but obsessed.
Yeah. And I had offered, like, I was like, "I can't leave." Puppy was like less than 6 months old. I was like, "I can't leave the puppy with you guys." Because they played the kids, you're hurting the kids. And I was like, "I can't leave the puppy with like alone in the house."
Right.
It's not even potty. Do you think I want to run away and collect all these dogs?
Right.
And ask somebody to like let me stay with a herd?
So she knew that you had moved out.
Yep.
And so then she finds out, however, about you creating this dog page. And she's like, "Oh, look, poor little so-and-so has to make pages about her dog now."
Well, she was saying that she was defending her children and crying and holding them while they cried because they missed their puppy.
Oh.
So she was, as I mentioned, she is playing their nucleus.
Which is why you said that you can't leave the puppy with them.
Well, because it wasn't even potty trained. It was
Right.
like 8 pounds.
Right.
But they're not a family.
Right.
Like, it's not your puppy.
Right.
Like, or maybe have a meeting to mediate the situation why I ran away.
Right.
I'm not asking for much. I mean, I'm with the kid. I never said the kids couldn't come. That was never the issue.
Right. You're just not going to leave a puppy in the house when nobody's going to take care of it and train it to use the bathroom.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I did have to leave one of the dogs, but I told him and they had the dog prior. So I felt like that was crossing a line for the kids.
Right.
But I also wanted it to get resolved.
Right.
Like, I had no plan. I just couldn't continue in this. And
Right.
so, like, the big reason I left is because we had been taking care of his dad and I was in ER all day, and like, we had finally got it all settled. And I don't want to get too much information on that, but we had put an end chapter and I was exhausted because where we were supposed to send him was threatening not to keep him.
Oh,
and I had to do one more day and leave work again. And this is when I kind of cracked a little. I was like, I can't help anyone anymore.
Right. Because you were empty yourself.
I was so empty, like dead empty. And the next day, and she had to have known these things because of the kid's phone. She might not have known I was empty, but she knew we were back in the ER or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day, he said, we'll have a family day so we can relax and rest. And then all of a sudden, she texts and says, this cousin on her side wanted to stay the night at our house, who hadn't been at our house in almost 2 years. And I get told it's for the children. He needs to come over. And I just was empty. And I went and got an Airbnb and left for 3 months.
Wow.
I was just like, pick your family. Like, there is nothing at this stage that says I don't put the kids first. So this is getting unhealthy. And it was these covert things she would do that could easily be turned on me. Like, why would she not want their cousin to come?
Right.
And it just kept adding up. And then the puppy thing happened. And I didn't even know her last name, honestly. And so I finally got my husband to tell, like, somehow I found her last name. It took me a long time. It took me, I think, till July.
Oh, girl, you should have called me. I'd have found it in a minute.
Yeah. And so I finally, like, found it. And so I went to block her on everything. And you can't, because she's blocked me on everything, but can screenshot me.
She's got another account.
Maybe, but no, because if she's not blocked on I've learned all this in this situation. I didn't know this stuff. So if she can block me so that I can never see her, but I can't block her back because she already blocked me.
Well, she shouldn't be able to see your stuff. No, I'm thinking Facebook.
No, she can see my stuff because I don't have her blocked.
If I block you on Facebook, I can't see your stuff.
Oh, really?
100%.
Well, it was on Instagram, so maybe she can't. But on Facebook, I did like join a group and like a stepmom group, and that got spread too. Like, it's wild how interested.
You can't do anything.
No, I can't. I can't do anything. Like, this will probably get found. I can't do anything. I mean, so then I say, okay, we can figure this out, but I'm not living there. And so we moved out to my house. I was like, I can't have her in the driveway.
Right.
Like, I have to heal. She has to figure out how to be a mom 3 days a week without using me, because it's causing issues in our marriage. It's causing issues for everyone. Mm-hmm. And it lasted 2 to 3 weeks. And then it started again. Just, she got a boyfriend, which we thought would help. And it just kept being chaos. Like, I'm not even going to go into what it was this summer, but it was just because at this stage, I became so numb to it. And I finally at least had like 2 days alone. Mm-hmm. So I was getting healthier in general.
Right.
But we were still like having issues. Then I decided to nacho because school was starting, and the week prior school, I somehow saw her 5 times
Oh my gosh.
for pickups or drop off cleats or whatever it is. And you did a podcast a year or two ago about with a guy who the parent and step parent were polar opposites. And that's what her and I are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like a hippie hillbilly, and she is a Kardashian reality show.
Oh, wow.
No, but in real, like, and I don't even mean that judgmentally.
Yeah,
like,
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
We're polar opposites.
Right.
So I'm like, cool. So it sounds crazy. It's too much for me at pickups to have her rip in next to me or like shake her ponytail asking what time. Like it's just too much for me. Other people might be able to do it, but I can't. I'm going into PTSD. I can't do another year of helping.
Right. And it doesn't matter what somebody else can deal with. It's what you can deal with.
Yeah. But I'm not being heard. So
Right.
This is where, and this is kind of the end of like the whole where I'm at now is, so I say I'm nachoing. I explain what nachoing is. I had tried like other step parenting programs, and I was like, I am not in that category. I have to nacho. And actually I commented, or I made a post in one of a very popular one, and one of the girls actually was kind enough to comment back, and she said, yeah, it's time to nacho.
Yeah.
So everyone knows nachoing is last resort.
It is, because nobody wants to be that nacho parent. Nobody wants to say, well, I stay out of that. But a lot of that's because of the negative mentality it has that it doesn't deserve, but also that role that stepmoms are supposed to be mom. Yeah, it's like you're a failure. Yeah, you're a failure if you can't be a stepmom to these kids.
Well, and that's where nachoing is valuable, because you get to a point where you don't, like, you can identify what nobody else can identify.
Mm-hmm.
And you know it's fixable, but you can't attain it. And there's so many different varying ways to attain it. But at some point, it's like, nobody talks to me.
Right.
Husband, nobody. Because we are divorcing.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy for anyone.
No.
And so I asked Nacho, and I explained to him what it'll be. And he gave what you describe on the podcast and other people have said, like some like retaliation. You don't want to help. You don't, and
you don't love my kids. You don't want to be part of this family. Yeah.
Very standard. And I was prepared. I wasn't prepared for her to respond. Within a week of nachoing, she's like, I didn't realize there were issues. Have her call me.
Well, why does she even know?
Because she had to pick him up on Thursday.
Oh, well, I'm starting to think this woman is like really stalking you. You need to create a new Facebook account and join step family groups through that or something. There's no way she knows this much on you. Do y'all have
No,
iPods?
it's wild what she knows.
Like iPads, iPods, Apple accounts?
Yeah.
Could the kids be signing into your Apple account?
We went like a year and a half ago, we went through like snooping, or it was like, almost 2 years ago. And that's done. That's
done with the kids. But what about with Bio Mom? Does she have access to their phones, which could have access to your stuff? Is what I'm guessing.
No, because the phones are all hers.
Okay.
I think more what it is because the kids are in such a healthy situation, and my husband has a very serious rule. We do not hide anything at our house from her.
Right.
And he's firm on that. He's like, I know that things are probably hidden on the other way, but we're not doing it at our house. Like we are adults and we can be accountable for whatever we do.
Right. But there's a difference in not hiding things from the kids and the kids knowing everything you do.
Oh yeah. Cause I've been through that with friends where they're like, just don't tell. But I mean, like we go to one concert a year, and this summer was our concert, and by noon she was infiltrating. So, we hid the pregnancy until Thursday.
Yeah.
I mean,
And it's not, again, it's not saying, don't tell the kids this, but it's just not divulging everything to them because they may say it. Yeah, mom and dad, stepmom and dad are going to the concert. They might not think anything about it, but if the kids didn't know what you were doing, that helps limit what bio mom knows what you're doing.
I know we just don't. It's kind of fascinating because we don't do much.
Yeah,
and
but girl, she's got
something.
something on you. She got a tracker or listening device or something.
No, it's bizarre. And about a year ago, I did ask my stepdaughter. I was like, why does your mom know everything about our house and we know nothing about you guys over there?
Uh-huh.
And she said, well, nothing happens over there.
Oh.
And I was like, it's a joke. I didn't say this to her, but in my head, I'm like, because it's all about us.
Right. Yeah, nothing happens there because you're always talking about us.
I know, but then my husband will say, oh, you're just obsessed, or, we're doing better now. But at the time when I asked Nacho, he just, it's a loyalty. Like, it's hard. He had a girlfriend before me and these issues didn't happen. And so it's hard for him it's a whole process. I don't know.
Yeah.
For him to accept that, like I'm not in a cat fight with her.
Right. Well, and it's that fine line of, is he getting defensive over the ex or is it over the kids?
I think he genuinely thinks her and I are just causing issues between us. And I think there's denial. I've heard this on other podcasts. I'm not going to speak for him, but I've heard like the guilt of not staying together. My husband, takes fatherhood and just being a good person very seriously. And he is all of those things. But it's hard to be confronted with something like, your ex is hurting me.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find the villain in me too, I would assume, because I can't just be some victim to this, can I?
Right.
Right. And so that went on like a month and I was just I was just done.
Yeah.
I was like, I expected a response from her or you, like the fact that every week, like I felt I was so done. So I prayed and then I went to call her because she's not the problem. We're going on all year of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we just need to talk. I call, I'm blocked. 2 days later, he's like, she didn't realize that she had you blocked.
Oh, BS.
Like, you don't tell someone to call you without, then she's very territorial. Like in like the 6 texts we've ever engaged in, the beginning of them always starts with, I don't have a problem with you. I've just had to block you. And it's like, that was over 2 years ago. And then this summer, I did get really mad a couple times, assuming I'm blocked because I'm always told I'm blocked. And she does something with her phone to make me think I'm blocked, but I'm not, I found out. And so I did like 4 different times send a long message of just like, because she was coming on to this property. And I was like, you're not welcome on this property. You have to be in the driveway. It only happened once or twice, but I was like laying the law down.
Right.
And I was like, I'm not going to go to any events for the children. I respect that you're their mother. It was very serious and to the point of like, stay away from me.
Right.
Because I thought I could fight it and you can't fight it. And so then the last time that we corresponded, I was like, yes, I'll be at a sporting event that she'd attended one in over 2 years. And my husband and I attended them every time. I said, yes, I'll be at an event. She proceeded to her text was condescending, starting off with like, I have to block you, but I don't basically telling me that her opinion matters of me and her opinion doesn't matter to me.
Right.
Like, you're not even talking about the kids right now. You're like, I don't even understand what this is that you're
Right.
texting. So she wrote, like, I told your husband to bring you here. Like, no, we don't even talk to each other. This is not how you try to resolve anything.
Yeah.
And so that was the last time, because I saw that she admitted, and then I sent her one more text and I'm like, please stop doing this. This is the second time in 2 weeks that you had my husband come to me and say that you have goodwill. And I have reached out, and you have both times. There's no goodwill. So stop messing with my marriage. My mom said you always gave her more ammo.
Right.
And so I was like, stop messing with my marriage. And then I get a text back like, I don't mess with your marriage. Da, 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 da. And then I straight up told her, like, do not ever contact me again. And for the first time, you are blocked indefinitely.
And is she still blocked?
Oh, she's blocked for life.
Yes, 100%.
There's no need at all. There's no belief. I do have no doubt in my mind there will be a reaction to the pregnancy. There's no way.
Right.
And I'm just going to let him handle it. Now he's got, his own dad bear. I don't know what you call it, but like he's got his own protection for this child and the health of me and the baby. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I found out I was pregnant a week after. I was like, I'm done. And so
surprise, God said, no, you're not.
Yeah. He was like, no. And so yeah, that's kind of the whole story.
Yeah. So right now she's blocked.
Yes.
And how are things with you and your husband? Has he quit siding with her when she says crap?
At the moment, there hasn't been too much going on because it'll die down. I don't really know much. Like, I really don't know much about her. So I think that there is stuff going on with her that I'm not going to put a label on it, but she tends to come in and then let us like readjust and get strong and then come in again. So it's been about 8 weeks where there
it's time.
Well, a couple weeks ago we were alone because it was like Veterans Day, and she did like get into it with him, and he started on me, and I just went and read a book in the bathroom. I was like, because I'm pregnant, so I've got like a whole different view of everything anyway.
I still don't understand why he's jumping on you.
I think things become habitual. I mean, we have been in this cycle all year. So I have progressed to not being healthy for the situation either. I have progressed to being very reactive to even like, I'm better now, but to even him mentioning her name.
Right.
Like I got to a point where I was like, third time today. Like I was just like, can you not go 24 hours without mentioning it? I mean, it becomes this tit for tat.
Yeah. Yeah. He needs to stop that.
Well, I was part of it. And I think, well,
how were you part of it?
Well, I shouldn't, I did not, I was not the creator of this. No, but I wasn't, in my opinion, working on myself to approach him in a healthier manner that works for him to see the problem.
Right.
I wasn't factoring in how I just decided to just like, I'm at my wit's limit. I never want to hear that name. Like, I'm not driving. Like, because you get to a place where like you're not heard. You try all these things for months to be heard. And then you realize I can't get you to see anything, and you just quit.
Yeah. So you're saying that when he would come to you with something Bio Mom said, your reaction could cause things to go south or not?
At the end, yes, because I wasn't getting through to him.
I can see that 100%, but I also feel at some point he just needs to tell her to stop saying anything about you. Like, keep your mouth shut about my wife unless it is something worth having DSS involved.
But he has to get to that place on his own. I
He
can't
does.
force it on him.
No, 100% he's got to get to that place on his own. But what concerns me is you're still being, I don't want to say attacked, so I'm going to say accused. So you're still having to defend yourself over crap that his ex is telling him. Not that I don't think that he should ignore everything she says.
Right.
Because the kids might be telling her something. But he can approach it differently with you too.
Well, definitely. And with the pregnancy, it's changed things, but I've also changed. And he actually brought that up this weekend. He was like, you're different. And I'm feeling like the pregnancy, I don't know if it's the baby. Dude, I'm sure it's the baby just being like, I'm going back to my old self that was like a badass.
Mm-hmm.
That's just like, I ain't got time for this. Like, I'm not making dinner like I used to. Like, it's like the baby's just making my entire attitude of everything just be done. And we're starting to be able to bring up a subject involving the kids. Like this morning we did, where it didn't go south too bad. Because we went into this being able to discuss kind of who she was and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And having a clear understanding. And I didn't really care his loyalty to her because it's their mom. But the past year since he's been out of town has been where it got vile.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to do our own repair in a sense right now to learn to trust what the other person is saying is in good faith.
Right. And a lot of it's perception. You and I talked about that when we talked before. And we can see that from his perception. The kids are complaining to bio mom. It's going to cause issues. He doesn't want to say his kids are lying and you're telling the truth, or vice versa. But a lot of times it is about that perception. It bothers me for you because I've been there where the kids tell bio mom something and then the bio mom comes to your partner or your husband, and then your husband's like, well, you've been doing this to my kids. Like, no, the crap, I haven't. Where does this come from? Well, the kids told bio mom. Well, we learned very quickly. The kids didn't always tell bio mom stuff. She grabbed a bunch of stuff out of her butt to send us emails about. The kids said they didn't like
emails.
it. Yeah. Or text. The kid said this. The kid said that. And so David quit addressing it with her and started asking the kids. Not your mom said blah, 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 but just, I want to know how y'all feel about this.
Well, and we had that healthy dynamic, like at first, like with the episode, like the first time it happened, he like sat us all down and we addressed like the things that I said were happening and they were acknowledged.
Then
and
what
happened? Did make us
happened?
healthier. Well, it made things healthier. And one of the kids that, it was the boy. So he wasn't doing as much just because it's just different. Boys have a different attachment with their mom than their dad.
Right.
So he didn't care that I was there because, he got popcorn whenever he wanted or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And, but as a female, like I had genuine concern. I remember I don't have kids. So we got to remember that I remember those ages pretty clear. And I don't see these children as little babies. I see them as this is where they're at. This is where they're at. I don't have that. I mean, I will with my own child, but with these children, I'm always on the going forward with them.
Right.
Because that's just how it works if you're not a parent.
Mm-hmm.
And so it went well and it really like opened stuff up. The boy was like, I don't have anything to add, but I'm glad that we cleared the air. But with him out of town, he was so taxed and exhausted and had such high hopes that everything would go smooth. I don't know what it's like to be in a position where you're trying to please two women. And he is supposed to get so exhausted by it, he just stops with one.
Yeah, and it has to be her.
Well,
and I know you know this.
Yeah.
But
it's really sad when you're in it to see someone pulled like that.
And I'm glad that you can see it as pulled and not just, oh, you love her, you care more about her than me. That's not the case. He's pulled. And it's not, I don't think, I might be wrong, but he's not pulled between his ex and you. It's the kids.
Oh, it's 100%.
Yeah.
It's 100% the kids. And that's where it like is a struggle to get on TikTok or anything like that and like see other people's views because they'll bring that up as something going on. And it's like, that's not. And ever since she told me they are a nucleus family, I have known what I was dealing with.
Did she cheat on him?
I can't accurately say, but they weren't married.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I was actually married for 10 years, or not 10. I was married for 7, and we were together for almost 10, 23 to 33. And we were really, we were like the definition of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
We got married really young, and it was healthy for us to be together when we were, but it wasn't anything ugly or anything like that. And it separated. And so, at the right time so that we could both have another life. But theirs was nothing like that.
Right.
That is all I can really say of that.
Okay.
So I have primarily, which is crazy sounding because it's modern day world, but like I've, in a sense, really preserved myself.
Uh-huh.
And that's not the case. But you get to a point where I can't psychoanalyze you anymore to understand where you're coming from, to understand why your actions are. Like, I can't give you motherhood clout anymore because nothing in my world is taking away from your motherhood.
Right.
But you can't run our house.
Yeah.
And it was affecting the kids. Like, that's when I decided not to too, is I actually had a friend for the first time witness it. I had given her a ride, and I was dropping the kids off with their mom, and the kids were in the back of the car, and it was like pulling teeth where to drop them off through the middle school, or it's not like a 4th grader.
Right.
And she just dropped the phone and went, ugh. And so I actually called my husband, and I was like, where are we going? I have to drop my friend off.
Right.
And this friend I've known for a decade. Since I've been a stepmom, my friends and I are reconnecting, but I definitely had to step away for a minute, but I still have that crew. And when the kids got out of the car, she was like, how often does that happen? I was like, this has gone on all year. And I said, this is the first time that I've seen a reaction like this. And I kind of wonder if it's because you were in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's like guilt put on the kids for like not being on time.
Right.
Not upsetting mom. And I don't know the dynamic, so I can't like actually speak that she's doing that.
Right.
But I'm witnessing like, we don't want to be late. We don't want to have,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's going on on the other end.
Right.
But I know that it's not working.
Right. Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was interesting that my friend be like that. She's like, I know you. That is so exhausting that you can't say Dairy Queen at 4.
Right. Yep. It should be as simple as that.
It really should. And I almost teared up. I hear these podcasts of people that like struggle in their situations and stuff. And it's just like, it's just so hard to be like, just in such a covert situation you can't explain, and it consumes your mind, and then you're trying to keep your home intact.
And others around you are trying to make you seem like you're the problem.
Yeah, just she's a crazy nut.
Uh-huh.
It's like, well, anybody would be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why can't you meet me?
Right.
Why can't you spend 5 minutes and that's where it's so important to me that it just starts getting acknowledged that like there's a real problem woman on woman.
Right. Now, do you want to be her friend?
Oh, there's no way. We have nothing in common.
Okay. Yeah, because I know a lot of stepmoms want to be friends with the bio mom.
No, I'm 100% confident that my husband reminds me that I'm like old school. So he's like, the things you say are not as insane as you think. Lots of people screenshot people. Lots of people stalk people online. But to me, it's outlandish and psycho.
Yeah.
I don't understand the healthy side of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I prefer to feel somebody's energy to see where they're coming from. I understand there's a lot of emotions involved. And I don't put it on her. I put 99% of it on my husband.
Mm-hmm.
Because once he figures it out, I've told him, apologize to her. What did you do?
Right.
Like, I am not going to throw someone completely under the bus, but I cannot be a part of it.
Right.
We are way too different of people. And I am not satisfied with this. I do not mean this judgmentally, because I know we all have a history that creates like issues in ourselves, that stunts us or that puts us where we're at. And that does not mean that she's not a good mom. And it doesn't mean that she can't be who she is with who she knows.
Right.
But I turned 40. I was all about, okay, how do I dress in the 50s?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I'm like, okay, I'm losing my color, like my youthful color. How do I work on my wisdom? Like, how do I engage this woman that's aging?
Right.
And so to be caught up in this scenario, it honestly stunted me and reverted me and turned me more into what she, like, I embarrassed myself because I allowed it to take me over.
Right. Yeah.
It is so easy to do. I've seen women on TikTok just crying, like, my marriage is gonna get divorced because of biomom. And this is over 40% of the population.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to fix it. And I want the birth mother to feel at peace.
Mm-hmm.
And I want, the stepmom to be able to live the dream she had anticipated.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Do you have the answer? I don't.
A lot of it, I think, just boils down to expectations.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, the step family dream,
Yeah.
it's never going to be what you dream because your expectations are too high. We're expecting other people to act like we act. We're expecting other people to be sensitive to others, be kind to others. And that's not always the case.
That's something that I'm okay with now. But I really did struggle this year being the primary source of blame for everyone and feeling alienated. I know I was alienated. They can tell me all they want. They didn't alienate me, but hear the they.
Yeah.
It was really hard to not love the children the way that I did prior. And I don't.
Right.
Because they didn't want me to.
Right.
And it's so confusing because you're supposed to love them. And that's where I drew the line with, like, if you don't want me to love them, then you don't get to have me drive them all the time.
Right. And it's not a matter, I don't think, that they don't want you to love them. They don't want you to parent them. They want you to love them when it's convenient and when it doesn't cause disruptions with the ex.
Which is impossible in my situation, because I've never really, there was one time ever that I told one of the kids, like, that is not okay. Other than that, I'm not a disciplinary.
Right.
Last night, too big of a load of laundry got in the dryer and it was affecting one of the other kids' sleep, and it caused like a disagreement. And I went and like got all the wet clothes and hung them throughout the house on hangers. And one of the kids brought up, didn't you say to do the laundry earlier today? And first thing that came out of my mouth was, we're not going there. I hear what you're saying, but we're not going there.
Right. Yeah.
So that's, I think there's like, I don't know, because I'm going to do everything I can to not have my child in that situation. And I know that my husband is too, because he doesn't want to have another child in a split situation.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to tell you, and I mean, I'll respect you when I say this. If your husband doesn't want that, then he needs to make sure bio mom understands her boundaries, and he needs to quit automatically believing what she says. He needs to question everything she says.
So what changes when you do have with scenarios like this? Does anything bring more loyalty with the child we're bringing in between my husband and I? Like, does it change a view of me?
It's going to change a lot of things, but it could change things in ways you never saw. So, for instance, your husband may be stricter on the ours kid than he ever has been on his kids. Now, granted, there's a big age difference, but when your kid is, say, like 5, and your husband's like, well, they should know how to do this, this, and this. And you're thinking, well, you didn't care that your own other kids knew that. So that can happen.
Well, I'd be okay with that.
Yes. And that's what's so funny. And I tell people this all the time because they're like, he doesn't, teach his kids any discipline and blah, blah, blah. But then when they have an ours kid, he's so strict on ours kids. Well, which way do you want it?
Yeah, I'd be okay with that because I was raised strict. I work a man's job. So like I already have, I intend on my kid, but I know what you're saying because I wrapped my head around it. It took me a minute, but it didn't take me too long to understand where the kids were at and that they just had to have Disneyland at both houses.
Yep. Well, I want to talk about the ours kid coming into the picture.
Yeah.
But we need to wrap up for today.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
No, that's okay. So how about we have you back and we'll talk about some of the things to prepare for when having an ours kid.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I was like, I wasn't sure. Oh, yeah. We'll have an exit. Thank you so much for hearing me and my story.
Well, thank you for sharing your story. We really appreciate it. And we will have you back and talk about the ours kid.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. We hope you enjoyed listening to our podcast with West Coast Stepmom and that you were able to get a nugget of information to help you in your blend. We want to make an announcement that in June 2025, June 20th and June 21st to be exact, we are planning a stepmom event. If you are interested or want to know more about it, please shoot me an email at Lori, Lori, at nachokids.com. We will be updating our social media with this information as we get it. All right. We hope you have a good day. We wish you the best. And remember, life is good when you nacho.